Just to be clear, I'm not against the design review meetings. You always make fonts too small, or can you finally read the documentation? Many people say that feedback should be all about why, not how, but I disagree with it. The first step that you need to take is improve your own reviews. Welcome to Design Hangout, a series where we talk all things design. Here's what's coming in today's episode. We'll talk about 7 rules for giving and receiving feedback. If you follow them, you will get much higher quality feedback and you will become everyone's favorite collaborator. Then we will dive deeper into preparing your designs for review. I will show you how to set up your Figma files so you will never have to hear again, I don't know how to find the screen. Next, I will share with you a step-by-step guide on how to handle async feedback in remote-first environments, including recording a video walkthrough for your designs and sending a message to your team. I got tons of positive feedback about this method over the years, not only from other designers, but also from developers who, as we all know, are really hard to please when it comes to design reviews. First, let's talk about giving and receiving feedback, and it's essential not only for design process, but also for collaboration in general. There is no collaboration without feedback. Honestly speaking, over time, receiving feedback about my designs became my favorite part of all the design projects that I do, because it really allows me to move forward, and without it, the quality is not the same. I basically see it this way. My design is an initial idea. It's a proposition of a solution. It's basically like a conversation starter for myself and my team. I've created this visualization to get our creative juices flowing, and now is the time for an important part, so people can contribute their feedback, different points of views, and also see the shortcomings of a solution. It's okay if because of this feedback, the design changes completely, or there is a little bit of tension in the team when discussing the ideas. This is exactly why we're asking for feedback. If you share your work with your team and every single time nobody has nothing to say, it's a really important sign that something is off. Today, I would like to share with you 7 rules for giving and receiving feedback that I use in my design practice, and I've noticed that they improve collaboration and the outcomes as well. And those rules, of course, will be from the perspective of a designer, but they are very universal. So if you're not a designer, you can definitely stick around because you will benefit from them as well. The first 3 rules apply to seeking feedback. If you ask for a review skillfully, you will get better quality feedback, and also you will avoid spending time on replying to irrelevant comments. Rule number 1 is providing context. Every time that you share your work, imagine that you're showing it to someone who has never heard about the project and has no context whatsoever. Here are the things that you need to explain to them. What is the specific problem you're solving and why it is important to solve it? What are the goals of the project, or what success would look like? Who is the solution designed for? Does it address a particular persona, or is just created for all the users of your product? That will really help you narrow down the comments. What were the constraints that you needed to address, and how those constraints influence the design? For example, are there any technical limitations or design debt? What were the alternative solutions that you've considered, and why you've decided not to move forward with them? And this is extremely important because people usually, when reviewing your designs, will share the alternative solutions that come to their mind. Addressing them retrospectively, saying that actually you thought about the solution, but it's not a good idea because of X, Y, and Z, is really time-consuming and frustrating. Imagine just sharing your designs and someone starts commenting in Figma about this alternative solution that they came up with, and other 5 people jump on the thread and they just start sharing how good of an idea it is, or maybe even making some decisions. And then after some time, you come back to the file and you need to untie the whole conversation and tell everyone that they were wrong because of some reasons that you've already considered beforehand. It's just easier to share those alternative solutions up front, the ones that you think that they will come up with anyways, and just keep it simple and very time effective for everyone. Rule number 2 is explain what kind of feedback you're seeking. And when asking for review, you need to clearly explain the following things. Your expectations when it comes to the type of feedback, you need to state clearly if you're looking for a detailed review, just a green light, a feasibility check, choosing between one of 2 approaches, or maybe just a gut feeling reaction to a particular design solution. It will make it easier for your reviewers and for yourself. Stage of the project. Are you exploring ideas in low fidelity, or is it a final design review? Providing this information will allow people to understand what level of detail they need to go in their comments. For example, if you're just exploring the ideas, commenting about something not aligning with the design system perfectly may be irrelevant, but if you're requiring a final design review, that would be a completely good comment and very valuable one. You can also give people some examples just to provide more clarity. Which parts of the design to focus on? You need to list the areas and the problems that you want your reviewers to pay special attention to. You need to guide them to the things that you have questions about so that feedback is actually valuable. Usually they have around 30 minutes to review your design, so you want them to spend this time on things that you actually need feedback on, not on the things that you have 99% clarity on. Also, later in this video, I'll show you how to navigate that using annotations so that you can highlight those items that you have questions about. Where to leave feedback? You may be asking people for feedback via email or on Slack, but you want them to go directly to Figma and leave the comments there, and you need to be really clear about it. Otherwise, you will end up with a nightmare of navigating between two spaces, going back and forth, telling people to move their feedback to Figma directly, or sometimes even having two threads in parallel about the same topic that are contradictory with each other. Rule number 3, manage expectations. Your objective, in addition to receiving great feedback, is to make sure that everyone sees value in reviewing your work. People take time and focus to give you advice, and they want to feel heard and understood. And you need to manage expectations to balance hearing everyone's voice with making good decisions in a timely manner. Time box. Make it clear what the deadline is for giving feedback. It will allow people to fit it within their schedule, and most importantly, it will set boundaries. You can clearly state that the feedback given after this time will not be taken into consideration because the team will be moving forward into the next phase of the project. Otherwise, you will have people coming back from vacation and after 2 weeks commenting on the project that is already being implemented. All feedback will be read, but not all feedback will be implemented. Reply and thank people for all the comments, but make sure that they understand that you are the decision maker here and you will decide which comments to apply to designs. And you need to be really nice about it. Tell them that all the feedback is important and that it sparks new ideas and gives a perspective, but they cannot have an expectation that only because they commented about something, it will be automatically changed. No design by committee. And this is related to the previous point. Basically, you need to avoid so-called design by committee, where you need 100% agreement from all the team members and all the stakeholders and all the reviewers on every single change that you're making. And it's impossible to achieve, and you will spend weeks on back and forth. As I said before, you are the decision maker, and ultimately you are responsible for the design outcomes. And it doesn't mean that you can go totally against your team. It just means that if there is one person or two people who don't agree with the solution or they want to see a totally different approach, you don't need to convince them otherwise. It's enough that you have support of the majority of stakeholders and your team. Now let's take a short break from the rules and let's talk about the techniques we can use to share the designs with our teams more effectively. After this short segment, we will come back to the remaining 4 rules, this time looking at feedback from a different perspective, giving feedback. Those will be some practical tips that you can use when working with Figma or any other design tool to help people navigate through your project. This is not a design handoff. We are not finishing the project yet. We are just sharing it for the review. First of all, I recommend setting a structure for your Figma files that every designer in the team uses. It will help other people, other team members, navigate through design files with less confusion. When every single designer is setting up their own structure, it just becomes a nightmare and it's really difficult for everyone and it increases mental load for everyone involved. Here's an example project file that I use for every single project, and you can put it in a shared folder for your team and people can just duplicate it when they need it. And here are the things that this file includes. Predefined pages like master, body review, prototypes, mockups, QA, etc. Project thumbnail with the space for the title, the link to the issue, and color coding for the stage of the project. When presenting the designs, you can group them in bigger frames with titles so people know which designs to analyze together. And there is also a title for every single design as well. And in addition to this general file structure, there are also some smaller elements that will help your team navigate. First, we have the project card, and this is an element where you share all the important information about the project. So the designer, the reviewers, the issue connected to the project stage, so done, in progress, review, etc. And a link to a design specification if there is one. I also like to add a link to the video walkthrough that I share when asking for feedback, and I will show you how to record one and how to set up one step by step by the end of this video. Next, we have badges, and they are useful to signalize the stage of every single mockup, because even though the whole project can be open for review, every single mockup can have a slightly different state. And I like to use draft, so for things that are in progress, in review, ready for that, experimental for alternative solutions that I've developed, and deprecated, so for the things that are no longer in the project, but I left them for more context. And it's important to add color coding to the badges that aligns with color coding for the whole project. Then we have annotations, and you can use them to provide more context about a design, and you can place them around the mockups so that the review is a little bit easier. You can list things like explaining why you've made a certain decision, what constraints are, or list the edge cases. And there are 3 types of those that I recommend starting with, and of course you can adjust it for your team as well. The first one is the simple note, so you will use it in majority of cases just to provide information. Then we have a to-do, and it shows that something is missing from the project, and you will either come back to it later or it's outside of the scope of the project. And by using a to-do note, you avoid getting millions of comments that are about, hey, this is something missing here. And the third type is feedback requested, and this is how you can guide people to areas that you have questions or doubts about. And this is what I've mentioned in the previous part of the video, that you need to help them out a little bit to navigate to those areas. And those particular annotations, the feedback requested annotations with different color coding, are really helpful for that. When asking for review, you also need to pay attention to resources that are outside of your design file. First, we have an issue. So whichever software you're using for managing your projects, there is always a place where the design work is specified. And it can be a GitHub issue, or it can be a Jira task, something like this. So you need to make sure that the description is up to date and that the specifications, so the requirements for the design work, are very clear and up to date there. And the second resource is design specification. For some designs, you will need to put together a design specification to explain all the design decisions. And don't overdo it. Don't explain every single obvious interaction, but definitely use it frequently. So for example, if you're designing a settings area, it will look completely different for different types of users, and you need to, of course, show it in your designs, but for reviewers, it will be very hard to just see the designs, compare everything, and make sure that you didn't miss anything. So having a design specification will be very helpful here, and also it will be extremely helpful for developers who will be eventually implementing it. Now let's go back to the remaining 4 rules, and we will switch the perspective to providing feedback. And I love giving feedback on designs. It's really easy and it's really satisfying for me, because basically you spend 30 minutes on reviewing someone's work and you can make so much progress because they already did all the heavy lifting when working with the blank slate, and now you can collaborate on it. And it's not really fair, because if I were to spend those 30 minutes just designing from scratch, I wouldn't make that much progress, but it is what it is. It's the nature of reviews. Rule number 4, focus on the feedback they're seeking. So if the person who asks you for review did their homework, you should know exactly what kind of review they're looking for, and don't go outside of it too much. You can gather other type of feedback in a separate thread, but that's the rule of thumb. Also, if you don't know what kind of feedback they're looking for, simply reach out to them and ask. Going over the top is not useful for any party, and it would just waste your time. Rule number 5, explain the why. Always specify where your feedback is coming from. Is it a gut feeling, a personal preference? Is it from data or research? Or maybe it's a good practice. Avoid giving feedback like, I don't know why, but just it doesn't feel right, or there's something off about it. Those pieces of feedback are just useless. You need to always specify what the problem is and where you're coming from. Rule number 6, provide an alternative if possible. I personally like when people provide an alternative solution, even though I don't feel obligated to use it. It just, sometimes it gives you this push that you need to go in a different direction. And many people say that feedback should be all about why, not how, but I disagree with it. I like when people are proposing alternative solutions and we have this little brainstorming. Sometimes I even like when designers are just mocking up other solutions in my file, although I wouldn't recommend it when you don't know the person enough. Just check with them beforehand if they are okay with it. Rule number 7, focus on the work, not the individual. Never ever critique the individual. You cannot say things like, you always make fonts too small, or can you finally read the documentation? Well, those were a little extreme, but you know where I'm going. Reviewers should focus on work and work only. If you have any other feedback that you would like to share with this person, for example, about how they asked for feedback, it's completely fine, but just do it privately. It will be better for the overall atmosphere and the relationship with this person. If you start attacking them publicly in the comments, it will be a disaster and they will never come back to you for advice. Now that we know how to give and receive feedback, I would like to share with you how I ask for feedback in remote first or async first environments. Usually, instead of scheduling a design review meeting, I share a video walkthrough for my designs that people can come back to and review in their own hours. In addition to that being respectful, I also notice that I get better feedback, higher quality feedback that is more thought over, because I think people have more time to think about solutions deeply instead of just firing first thoughts that come to their mind during the meeting. Just to be clear, I'm not against the design review meetings. They, of course, have their own place in the review cycle. Usually, I schedule them when we have some unresolved issues or some things just require face-to-face discussion after the first async round of feedback. And that saves everyone's time and also allows us to focus during the meeting on things that are actually important and keep the meetings short. Here is my flow for preparing for async feedback. Step 1, prepare the designs and the file. And this is the base for this feedback round. I prepared the design file very carefully, making sure that I've covered everything. And I use those helping elements that we've discussed earlier, like annotations, badges, and the project card. Step 2, write down the main points you want to cover in your video. I like to have this list at hand when presenting the designs because otherwise I tend to forget about things. Step 3, record the video. You can use one of the popular tools like Loom or CleanShot. You need to walk people through the designs and explain how to navigate through the file. Make sure that you mention what kind of feedback you're looking for and where to leave it and what is the deadline. Also, if you do it for the first time, you can definitely rehearse before the first take. Step number 4, share the video with your team. And I usually share it on Slack with a message like this. Hello team, this project is ready for your review. Please watch the walkthrough before reviewing. And then I attach some links. Video link, Figma link, and I say that please leave comments directly in Figma and not in this thread. Prototype link, if I presented one during the video. Issue link, and I also mention the deadline by the end of day Tuesday, for example. And then I say something like this. I'm looking forward to your feedback. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Very short, very sweet. I intentionally keep the message very short and I don't mention any details about the project because otherwise I found that if I were to explain some details here, people would just read through this message and skip the video overall, and that's not the goal. I want them to just know that the project is ready for review and where to find materials. Step number 5, respond to feedback and implement changes. You need to get back to every single comment and make changes accordingly. Of course, sometimes it will take a little bit of back and forth, and maybe mocking up some alternative solutions. And step number 6, follow up. After the time for review is over, you can record another video with the summary of changes you've made. Also remember to thank all the reviewers and make them feel appreciated. You can mention them on Slack, or you can even mention them during a stand-up meeting. If there is anyone who helped you more, or in particular the feedback was valuable, you can also reach out to them directly and thank them in addition to that. Before we wrap up, I would like to quickly touch on the topic of fostering feedback culture in your organization. Of course, it will take time for people to learn how to give and receive feedback, and there are 3 things that you can do to help with that. First, lead by example. The first step that you need to take is improve your own reviews. You need to show people how to ask for feedback skillfully and how to give thoughtful feedback. You can also talk about it during an all-hands meeting or create a handbook page. The second thing is to mentor others. You need to help your team improve their feedback skills, and they sometimes will need more time or some coaching. Always be respectful and ask for permission before sharing feedback. And lastly, get the leadership buy-in. All the initiatives turn out better if they have the support of company leaders. Even before sharing your feedback rules with your team, reach out to your manager. It will be easier to make people follow the rules if that's a bigger initiative, not just your individual effort. Thank you so much for joining me for this Design Hangout. I hope that now you will get back to your team and get the best design review process going. If you have any questions or ideas for the next episode, you can leave the comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.